Okay, this is a companion video to this slide here, which is slide number 3 from a presentation made to the Parks Advisory Board from the City of Austin Cemetery Division. And so I'm following through on this slide. If you look at it, it claims that the Department of Public Works managed the cemeteries, which ended in 1986 when they basically dumped it onto the Parks Department. The Parks Department ran it for 4 years, had multiple problems, and was losing money hand over fist. It was decided to farm the work out to an independent contractor. It was going to be much cheaper. They claimed they had 26 full-time employees, all grounds personnel, and 15 of them were seasonal. I don't know where they're getting this information from, but this is Department of Public Works prior to 1986. It'd be interesting to challenge them on this. What they didn't do is they didn't show you what InterCare, when they managed it from 1990 to 2013, it says managed by the contractor. It was managed and operated by the contractor. They skip real past that. They skip past this very quickly in the presentation. Then they come down to what they have. And this is where they're really trying to butter up the department, saying they need more people. On April 1st, that's the biggest April Fool's joke ever to be perpetuated on the citizens of Austin. In 2013, the Parks Department assumed the management of the 5 municipal cemeteries. The cemetery team was established to handle the administration, the internment, and the maintenance functions. Now, the administration, yes, they didn't do interments. Interments were still managed by Internment Services. They might have made arrangements with the families, but they didn't actually do the digging. Currently they have 21 full-time employees, 6 administrative and 15 grounds, 5 of which are seasonal. This down here is kind of fluff. So, in their presentation here and in the end, they are setting the stage to get more employees. They can't get it done with the employees they have. Let's take a look at what InterCare, their staffing, was like back in the day. Now, the City of Austin's record retention policy is only 3 years. I, as a longtime advocate for the cemeteries, immersed myself in all things City of Austin cemeteries and other things, and I have copies of the old contracts from InterCare Corporation. So, InterCare Corporation is the parent corporation, and Internment Services is a subset. Back in the day, this was the structure. The City of Austin had a contract administrator. That was Mr. Jay Stone. If we want to compare this to today's personnel, you would say that Jay Stone would be Anthony Segura as the assistant. If you were to compare this flowchart with today's management, the contract administrator could be compared to Anthony Segura, who is the assistant division manager for the Parks Department and who oversees the cemetery division. Mr. Gene Bagwell was the owner and president and secretary of InterCare Corporation. So the blue circles represent all of the employees that we could compare to our current cemetery division. The green check marks are actually employees that work for Internment Services Incorporated, which still do the opening and closings for all of our burials in the City of Austin cemeteries. The city wants to go in-house with this, so we're going to compare apples to apples. Let's count the blue and see how many employees InterCare managed to operate the system with. Now, Gene Bagwell is the owner, president, and secretary. Gene could be compared to our cemetery manager, which is Tanja Walls Davis. And so that's one here. The superintendent of operations was Brian Kruger. And so this is how it worked out. Now, although this line comes down this way, the superintendent of regional burial services, David Friedman, he actually belongs over here in the Internment Services field, as do these 3 equipment operators. They're over here if we're comparing the city of Austin to InterCare. Brian Kruger could be compared to Boyce Freitag, who is the manager over operations. There was one office manager, so Brian pretty much ran the show at Austin Memorial Park. Greg Kruger is his brother, a younger brother, 15 years experience, 10 years experience. Greg was the office manager, and for a while they managed to keep the Oakwood Chapel building open to have a presence on the east side cemeteries. So Brian would run the office at A&P, and Gregory ran the east side cemeteries. They had an office assistant manager by the name of Renee. So there was 3 of them that ran the office as composed to 6 people. Well, if you want to count the manager. So they ran the office with half of the staff that the city of Austin does. The grounds maintenance supervisor. Now we do have ground maintenance supervisors inside of the city of Austin, who, while if you were going to compare this gentleman here to Boyce Freitag, who is overseeing a lot of the maintenance issues and everything else, your ground maintenance supervisor is going to be in the field with your crews. One person here. Then they had 8 groundskeepers. So let's count. Oh, we have a gatekeeper over here. The city of Austin still has this same type of thing. There's an employee whose job it is to get up early in the morning, unlock all the cemetery gates, and then comes back and closes them at 7 o'clock. The offices don't open till 9 and would close at 5:30 or 6 unless they were helping a family out. So the gatekeeper is this standalone person. They ran it with 8 groundkeepers, 1 supervisor, that's 9. So 9 people in the field and 3 people in the office. And then this guy here. InterCare was different in the fact that they had a regional mechanic, Keith Orchard, which doesn't play into the city's comparison because the city sends all their work out to the city shops to have the work done. InterCare found it very economic to hire a mechanic and have him work on all of the equipment. If one of the backhoes went down, this guy would run out and fix it. The city of Austin doesn't have that. They send everything to the shops and it gets back charged. And so, again, if this is Tanja, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 people that InterCare had running the office, and the city of Austin had run 6. And then you have a supervisor and 1 groundskeeper, that's 9 people. Let's go back to what the city was using. The city has 21 full-time employees, 6 administrative, and 15 grounds. So it's almost double of the crew, and we're doing less burials now than we were back then, and they're asking to double this amount of people. They claim they cannot meet the operational needs. They're consistently short of people. So you have to wonder, why would they leave this blank? Had they populated this with the proper information, then this wouldn't made any sense. They overinflate this. They didn't give you this information. And they set up the situation here where we need more people. Let's take a look at the Internment Services side. So the city wants to take over the digging operations. Now with InterCare Corporation, Gene's wife's name is Susan. She's the vice president and secretary. All the paperwork would be funneled back to them. They managed to provide quarterly, semi-annual, and annual reports, but the city of Austin hasn't produced any reports in the last 3 years. David Freeman is here. Then they've got 3 operators. So they had 4 people. They had a supervisor and 3 operators, and they handled all of the opening and closings all the way down the line. Now, there was an administrative assistant over here, so that basically puts, if you add this in over here, that puts us about the same level. We've got about 6 administrators working in this arc. So if InterCare managed it back in the day with 6, the city of Austin surely should be able to manage it with 6. If they hire 1 more a superintendent to cover burials and 3 operators, then they should be able to do this here. They've got their 1 gate operator. So note, InterCare had 20 full-time employees with 1 part-time. The city of Austin has 1 more, and the city of Austin has not taken on this function yet. So from the another part of the InterCare's contract, we find this this page here, which actually gives us a snapshot of what was going on. InterCare's priority was to operate and negotiate with the city in a manner that guides the cemetery program towards a self-funding operation. I discussed this in the past. They didn't get any money from the general fund. They were expected to make it on their own. And over the course of their run, the city actually made money. InterCare developed and implemented additional revenue-generating activities to include liner sales. The city of Austin instituted in 1959 the mandatory use of concrete liners. And a concrete liner is different than a vault and monument settings. The city didn't do that prior to that. They included the revenues from maintenance fees in the GOR associated with Oakwood, Beth Israel, and Section burial grounds. Actually created a program to where if somebody wanted to have work done on their lot, then the city, meaning InterCare, would charge him a reasonable fee, and when it wasn't the mowing season, they got that done. A 12-month interest-free space sale time payment program was initiated in 1993 to provide citizens with an opportunity to purchase pre-need burial property. Now, we know that pre-need has always been available because the Parks Department, when they had it between 86 and 1990, they had a couple of employees that were arrested because they were taking monies from families making pre-need payments and not depositing it and giving themselves payday loans. And they got arrested. And that was one of the things that kind of pushed the city to privatize with InterCare. As I've stated, InterCare was really great to work with. I found them very approachable. They negotiated favorable terms and conditions to mitigate or lessen the subsidies. And again, this is where we're going to start talking about our perpetual care fund. At the end of the Parks Department's thing, they were worried that we were robbing the perpetual care fund, and that's just not true. The owner, Gene Bagwell, elected to reduce or waive the annual REE increase 6 of the 15 years, averaging 2.5% rather than the 3.5 minimum as stipulated in the contract. So there was a lot of times when things were kind of lean, he would back off and accept things. He also absorbed significant operating expenses, increases associated with fuel costs. The price of fuel goes up, he had to eat it. Utility cost, he paid all of the utilities, electric, water, sewage, all that stuff with the city of Austin. The city rates went up, he wasn't allowed to get more money in his contract, as well as employee insurance costs. The city of Austin, several times in the last 20 years, have created a cost of living wage for all city employees, and that went over to anybody who had a contract with the city. So if the city employees got a raise, a minimum wage, then so did all the people that had contracts with the city. He also had oversight in numerous on-site construction and enhancement projects. He actually oversaw road and sprinkler repairs that were a result of just poor workmanship during the install. And he actually oversaw a part of the work on the drainage canal. And he didn't get paid for that, but he was just there for the things. These efforts resulted in a significantly lower annual subsidies and avoided a consistent reduction in the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. Again, he didn't get money out of the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. That fund was used to send somebody else from the city over to fix plumbing leaks, or to deal with trees, or to deal with the drainage canal. Gene managed all those things. The fund had been able to consistently grow from interest accrual, thus providing funding source for future operational demands and perpetual care maintenance. I talked about this. But But the city keeps on thinking they need to find money to do trees, so that they're looking right now on how they can steal money from this fund. Is it available to them? And they're not thinking long term in the future. The subsidies for the city of Austin for the 5 years prior to contracting with InterCare, what it cost the city to operate for those 5 years was $1,501,799. So about $500,000 a year. Now, if you compare that to the 14 years under the InterCare contract, the total was $136,138 for 14 years, as opposed to $1.5 million. It's important to note that the subsidy total for the city of Austin does not include expenses associated with other city department support, such as equipment maintenance, having to send city equipment off to the shop, facility maintenance. A lot of times the buildings needed work done, then the building maintenance people would come over and back charge the Parks Department. Capital equipment purchases and citywide administrative support. When you privatize, much like InterCare, all the costs of management and operational costs were included in the contract. You can see it is cheaper to rent people than it is to own them. This equation doesn't even take into consideration the retirement. Once a contract runs out, you stop paying that contractor. When you fund a cemetery operation with the general fund and you hire city employees, and if those city employees work to retirement age, you not only stop paying their wages, but you continually to pay them through their retirement years until they die. So again, that's an ongoing expense that you do not have when you privatize things out. A lot of things to think about.